Today is Thursday, and it is now 6 days till we have to go to, till New South Wales has to go to Queensland, and the coaches and media hate each other.
Yes. Very interesting, isn't it? Gordon Tallis certainly didn't miss on Monday night on NRL 360. Gave both barrels to Michael Maguire. Pretty classless personal attacks made by Gordon Tallis, and why are we not surprised that this is coming from Queenslanders?
No, Queensland are the more honourable, better, nicer. You know, they would never allow people who misbehave in their team. They would never retire from football. They would only pick people from inside Queensland. They have all these things that they say, and none of those things do they do.
No, not at all. What made me laugh the most about Gordon Tallis' comments on Monday night were we talking about Queensland can take a loss. The funny thing is you guys talking about New South Wales can't, apparently. I don't think it could be any further from the truth somehow in the aftermath of Game 2. And we're still, we're, as you said, we're nearly at Game 3. We're under a week away from Game 3. And Queensland are still salty about Game 2. And the series is only level. Queensland are a good chance of winning the decider. And if they win the decider, this Game 2 loss won't mean a thing. But they're still salty about it north of the Tweed.
Yeah, constantly going on about it. They're still Queenslanders.
Yeah, well, so Gordon Tallis had a good go at Michael Maguire on Monday night. We also had Gordon Tallis getting really defensive with Phil Rothfield the day after the game, and we also had Billy Slater getting salty with those reporters in the press conference after the game. So this... some of these quotes from Tallis from Monday night, he said, talking about Maguire, wouldn't know he never played Origin. So that was the first dig. Then he said, as the Tigers coach, he had no personality. So if we weren't sure whether it was a personal attack, I think we're pretty sure after that comment. And then he says he might even get sacked from this job. He got sacked from South, sacked from the Tigers. So he didn't miss here. He says, I'm glad I got under his skin. This is what Tallis said of Michael Maguire. So this is just a really poor display from Gordon Tallis on Monday night on NRL 360. And I'd hate to see how these Queenslanders are going to react if New South Wales do go up to Suncorp Stadium and win the decider on Wednesday night.
You know where he didn't get sacked? He didn't get sacked from Wigan when he coached them to their first grand final in whatever it was, 2002. Grand final win it was as well.
Yeah, didn't get sacked from them. And also, which was conveniently left out by Gordon Tallis, won a premiership with South Sydney in 2014 as coach.
And did he get sacked from New Zealand, or did he leave because they couldn't? Because he chose the New South Wales.
Yeah, he left because he went to New South Wales. So and he also left out New Zealand winning that Pacific Championship final 30-0 last year against Australia. If you're coaching New Zealand and you can beat Australia 30-0 in a tournament final, you've got something going for you as a coach.
Yes. But, I think Billy Slater summed it up when he said we're still Queenslanders, and Gordon Tallis is just really showing that they're still Queenslanders because his tantrums just show the true Queensland style.
It's unbelievable. To sort of go back to his time as the Tigers coach not having any personality.
Does anyone? The only personality you have as a Tigers coach is, oh my God, how much does this suck?
And talking about him getting sacked from South and sacked from the Tigers, I mean, the vast majority of coaches get sacked from their job. There's very few coaches who leave their jobs on good terms. That's just the nature of the job. It's such a cutthroat job that the absolute majority of coaches end up getting sacked by their clubs. So to have a dig at him like that in such a personal manner, I thought it was poor form from Gordon Tallis, and it shows just how thin-skinned he is after Queensland get dusted up by New South Wales.
Yeah, well, if you go through the current ladder, that's a really good point you make. So Ivan Cleary got sacked from Penrith. Then you got Trent Robinson, Craig Fitzgibbon, Craig Bellamy, Cameron Ciraldo, Wayne Bennett, who's at Sea Eagles? Anthony Seibold, who got sacked from Brisbane.
Yeah.
Cowboys is Todd Payton. Yep. Knights is Adam O'Brien, almost sacked.
Yeah.
Dragons is Shane Flanagan, who got sacked from the Sharks.
Yeah.
Broncos is... Who coaches it? Kevin Walters.
Yeah.
Who got sacked from Queensland.
Yeah. So of those coaches you mentioned, how many of them do we think are going to end their time with their club without being sacked? Well, I think Craig Bellamy probably will be the only one. Craig Bellamy will walk away and retire.
Wayne Bennett, that's it.
And Wayne Bennett, if he has success at South, he might do the same.
Well, he'll walk away and retire as well, surely, from South. They're not going to sack him. Or he's got 3 years.
Yeah, so of all the coaches, the only ones, and I don't know, maybe you know, Trent Robinson and Ivan Cleary could be in this category as well. But the two that stick out are Bellamy and Wayne Bennett are going to be the only two who don't get sacked.
So the only ones in that group that haven't been sacked are basically new coaches. So, that's not even in the full ladder, but the ones that haven't been sacked are basically new coaches or super coaches who have won multiple premierships. So ones who are not going to get sacked so far are Storm, which is Craig Bellamy, Trent Robinson, Wayne Bennett, right? And then you have Ivan Cleary, who has already been sacked. Craig Fitzgibbon, who is new. Cameron Cirata, who is new. Anthony Seibold, who has been sacked. Todd Payton, who is new. Adam O'Brien, who is new. Shane Flanagan, who has been sacked. Kevin Walters, who has been sacked. And you got Ricky Stewart, who has been sacked and is now unsackable. You know, Rabbitohs' Ben Hornby, that's only been an interim coach, new. Andrew Webster at the Warriors, new. Titans, Des, who has been sacked.
Yeah.
Eels.
A number of times.
Eels, now Jason Riles. Trent Barrett currently, who has been sacked, and changing to Jason Riles, who is new. West Tigers, Benji Marshall, who is new. So, out of all those clubs, out of every single current coach, they've all either been sacked, this is their first job, or they're super coaches who aren't going to get sacked. And Trent Robinson out of those three basically guys who aren't going to get sacked, Wayne Bennett, Craig Bellamy, and Trent Robinson. You know, Trent Robinson is currently walking a dangerous line with the Roosters, having not had success since 2019.
Trent Robinson, he won back-to-back premierships in 2018 and 2019.
So he's walking a tightrope there as well.
I thought they'd underachieved for quite a number of years since that last premiership in 2019, but they are coming good again this year. Yeah. I'm sorry to say, they are coming good again this year.
He was walking a fine line, and like I said, Ivan Cleary's immune to being sacked right now. Like right now at the Panthers, because he's won 3 in a row, but he's not immune to being sacked. He's been sacked before, multiple times, yeah? Like, did he get sacked at the... He was at the Warriors?
Ivan Cleary.
I can't remember.
I think he was at the Warriors.
But he got sacked from Penrith.
Got sacked from Penrith. I think he just left the...
To go to Penrith?
Look, no, to be honest, I don't think he got sacked from the Warriors because he made the grand final in his last season there in 2011, so they wouldn't have sacked a coach who made the grand final.
Oh, yeah, he went to go to Penrith.
So he just decided to go to Penrith, and then we all know how Phil Gould sacked him because he said he was tired. That comment didn't really age well given the success he's had in winning the last 3 straight premierships, but anyway... but then, he went to the West Tigers in 2017-18 and then left to go back to Penrith. So, Ivan Cleary is another one who hasn't... Oh, well, actually, no. He did get sacked. He got sacked by Penrith. So, he's been sacked once.
In reality, he could say that about any coach, right? You can't say it about Billy Slater right now. You know why? This is Billy Slater's first job. If Billy Slater gets sacked or loses, he could get sacked. They got rid of Kevin Walters. I mean, you can even say, this is Kevin Walters. Kevin Walters is a rookie NRL coach or new NRL coach. It's his first job, right? But he has been sacked as an Origin coach. So you're not a coach if you haven't been sacked. But it is just... It's the kind of thing where you can make a statement about someone, a statement of fact about someone, but you can still mean that statement of fact to be in a negative way, like a personal attack. You know, it's like, you know, I say to someone, you've got grey hair, if they have grey hair.
Yeah.
But I could also say to them, oh my God, you've got grey hair.
And then, could I also, just while we're still on this Gordon Tallis item, taking those cheap shots at Michael Maguire, can I just point out some hypocrisy on the part of Tallis here? Now, when Michael Maguire made that glass houses comment about Billy Slater, he said, he was talking about, referring to Slater's playing days, obviously, his very long rap sheet he had as a player, and saying, well, it's a bit rich how you're all getting up in arms about Joseph Suolii's hit on Reece Walsh when look at your record as a player. And at that time, Gordon Tallis said, Michael Maguire can't go back to Billy Slater's playing days. He's a coach now. That's rough how he's gone back to his playing days. Yet, he went back to Maguire's playing days. He said he wouldn't know. He never played Origin. So it's all right for Tallis to go back to Michael Maguire's playing days, but it's not all right for Michael Maguire to go back to Billy Slater's playing days. It's the height of hypocrisy from Tallis.
Yeah.
He's becoming very irritating to watch, I'm telling you. And I know we're going to get to Paul Kent being sacked a bit later, but I'm really starting to wish that Paul Kent hadn't been sacked and he was still hosting that show instead of Tallis.
Yeah, Gordon Tallis says he's still a Queenslander, so he'll still say hypocritical things because that's what they do. Everything they say is hypocritical, all their criticism. And it's, you know, you had the thing a few years ago where they were complaining about James Tarmo and being from New Zealand. Right, and that was so hilarious that somebody made a funny song. the hypocrisy that comes out of Queenslanders, it's like they don't even remember last week. You know, as I've brought it up multiple times. They're complaining about Mitchell Pearce. You know, what's his name? Mal Meninga said if he was a Queenslander, he wouldn't be picked. But you have Darren Lockyer, crash tackling bouncers. You have Jonathan Thurston, laying on cop cars and hitting people with his crutches. You have Sam Thaiday and Darius Boyd in a bathroom with a random girl. You have, massive list goes on and on and on. You know, you have complaints about Suoliti and, like, you know, Queenslanders wouldn't do that. Well, you know, that kind of stuff's happened before from Queensland. You had Nate Miles leading with his head so much that Paul Gallen had to punch him in the face. You know, they're beyond ridiculous. They complain about when we take James Tarmo, but come on, like, basically 3/4 of the people who have ever been picked from Queensland are from somewhere else. Greg Inglis is obviously a New South Welshman. And so on and so forth. Everything they say is just nonsense. Danny Badiris retires from rep football. We'd never do that. No Queensland would ever do that. Cameron Smith said that. And what did Cameron Smith do in the last couple of years of his playing career? Retired from rep football. Thought you'd never do that, Cam. Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. You know,
he did retire from rep football, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. That was the funniest thing ever. Because he criticised Danny Badiris for retiring from rep football.
Yeah, he did too. He finished playing for Queensland in 2017, but continued to play for the Storm until 2020.
Queenslanders had never retired from rep football. You know, if there's a call up there, they need to come back. Just look at Alfie Langer. Yeah, but look at Cam Smith. And many, many others. Like, who else? Justin Hodges, I think, retired from rep football. Billy Slater, I believe, retired from rep football. They all retire from rep football. Everybody does. Because one of the things, like in Cameron Smith's case, it was different, but one of the things that happens with the retirement from rep football, you know, a lot of them retire because they know they're not going to get picked, which is what James Tedesco should have, you know, should do this year. Retire from rep football because he knows he's not going to get picked next year. And that way you get to go out on your own terms. But Gordon Tallis is just an absolute hypocrite. He's still a Queenslander. I think Billy Slater said it best. We're still Queenslanders.
Can you imagine the reaction if New South Wales win that decider? Can you imagine their reaction?
I can't wait.
It's like the world's going to end for them if New South Wales win that decider.
I can't believe how worked up they are over, like, the middle game, the second game.
Yeah, so they haven't lost anything yet.
Like, why?
If they win on Wednesday, game 2 doesn't mean anything.
Just calm down, boys.
And as I said, we're more than 2 weeks after that game, and we're less than a week until game 3, and we're still getting these overreactions.
Yeah, they've turned into the English cricket team, man. The reason the English cricket team dropped out of the T20 World Cup is because Johnny Bairstow got... Just get over it, man. So, yeah, we'll see what Gordon Tallis says next Wednesday. It's up in Queensland. It's, going to be a tough ask for New South Wales to do anything, but if they can come out and do again what they did in Melbourne, Gordon Tallis is going to be straight on there saying Michael Maguire is a terrible coach. Even if they win.
Yeah.
Even if New South Wales win, Gordon Tallis will be on there saying Michael Maguire is a terrible coach. And I think one of the other things he said, what was that? Like, I never noticed him on the field, but they never actually played against each other.
Maguire pointed that out as well. Maguire said, I've got the quote here. He said, "I need to thank Gordy. He actually thought I played against him." But, I mean, that's not... As I actually... I've actually done a column on it, which I think will
It'll go up tomorrow.
Yeah, it's going up tomorrow. Yeah, I've done a column on it where I said, that was just a left jab from Maguire. But I mean, you're into your fight sports. Tallis has come back with 3 big right hooks after 1 left jab.
Sorry. It's the same thing. Like everybody who played against Wayne Bennett didn't notice Wayne Bennett on the field because he was subpar player. Phil Gould talks about how he was an average goal-kicking back rower or something. Like, that's his...
Yeah, again, wanting it both ways. Tallis says Maguire can't talk about Slater's playing days, and yet he's quick to talk about Maguire's playing days.
Get over it, Gordon Tallis.
Yeah. It's just something... Yeah, it's just... He just... I don't know what's going on with him at the moment, and just imagine the hysteria... if they get beaten on Wednesday. So.
That's what I hope for, just so I can see Gordon Tallis' reaction. Meanwhile, David Fifita was overlooked again, and Darren Lockyer has come out in defence of Billy Slater and given him what I think is a bullcrap excuse, saying David Fifita... Billy Slater has been watching videos and notices David Fifita gets fatigued.
Yeah, he says, so Darren Lockyer says the reason David Fifita is continually snubbed by Billy Slater at the State of Origin selection table is all down to his inability to aim up when under fatigue. Now, so Billy Slater's not happy with David Fifita and his inability to aim up under fatigue. Well, I'll tell you what, I wasn't happy with Billy Slater's ability to aim up in that post-game press conference. I wasn't happy with that at all. He couldn't even answer the question straight. He couldn't even answer a pretty basic question from the reporter after such a heavy defeat of, will you make changes for Game 3? Billy Slater was asked twice and wouldn't give a straight answer. So he's not happy with David Fifita's ability to perform under fatigue. Well, I'm not happy with Billy Slater's ability to perform under pressure in a post-game press conference after you've just suffered a humiliating defeat.
Yeah, I like I said, I think it's just a made-up excuse that they've gotten to justify it, and there's something going on there because David Fifita isn't playing badly or anything like that in any way. He's not. When he gets tired, he gets taken off the field as any forward does. His numbers he's putting up lately, especially, have been pretty phenomenal. Like 2 weeks ago against the Warriors, 195 metres. Last week against the Sharks, 123 metres.
Yeah.
168 against the Rabbitohs. And keeping in mind, like even against the Rabbitohs when they were a losing team, 168 metres is pretty good. He's missing a couple of tackles here and there, but he's also making quite a few tackles. So, yeah, honestly, I think it's not... I don't think it's real.
And this is the thing. I mean, we talk a lot about how it's going to be difficult for New South Wales. Of course, it is. Their record at Suncorp Stadium isn't great in deciders. I think it's it's only 2 of 13 deciders they've won at Suncorp Stadium. Now, we've talked a lot about that, how, how could New South Wales have a 5 out of 6 winning record at the MCG in Melbourne, but only be 2 out of 13 at Suncorp Stadium in Brisbane? And the conclusion, that we've talked about it before, the conclusion you would have to draw is, well, surely the 52,000 screaming Queenslanders at Suncorp Stadium, obviously they get into the subconscious of the referee, and it's really hard. It's going to be really hard for New South Wales to win the penalty count and win the 6 again count on Wednesday night. There's no doubt about that. It's going to be an uphill battle for New South Wales. We've said all that, but by the same token, we also need to add to this. Queensland are coming off a humiliating defeat in Game 2. They were down 34-0 at half-time. That's a record for a half-time score in a half-time margin in a State of Origin game. It's a record. Can they really afford to just play it safe after such a humiliating defeat? Do they really think it's going to be as straightforward as, we'll just go back to Brisbane, we'll be right, home ground, we'll get home? I mean, yes, they've got a very good record up there, but surely there's more that goes into it than that, and there's going to be more factors that come into play. We need to remember, New South Wales outplayed them resoundingly in Game 2. And I don't know that you can just play it safe and win Game 3 after being beaten up big time in Game 2. I think you've got to take some risks. I think Fifita should have been picked. I think Slater's wide of the mark leaving him out, and it may come back to bite him on Wednesday night.
Yeah, well, the refereeing has been subpar. We've talked about it extensively and very weighted in Queensland's favour, and it's just going to be worse. And, Billy Slater has made some risks, really weird ones. He's dropped Valentine Holmes because Latrell Mitchell carved him up. Latrell Mitchell's out, and he's brought back Dean Gagai.
Yeah, Dean Gagai and Kalen Ponga recalled by the Maroons.
He dropped Selwyn Cobbo after the first match that he won, which was a risk for some, but then there was reasons for it and so on and so forth. So, nobody thinks that David Fifita shouldn't be in the team except for Billy Slater and his sycophants. And they'll just support him blindly. And as I said, I think Darren Lockyer has just made up that excuse. It's nonsensical.
Yeah, it's nonsense because some players play very few minutes in State of Origin. I mean, Jake Trbojevic only played 25 minutes I think 25 minutes in one of the games and maybe 30 in the other, 33 in the other game. Yeah. So players don't need to be on for a long time. So it is a questionable excuse because you go, well, if you're worried about his performance under fatigue, well, just don't give him too many minutes. And they might say, but we want our players to play a lot of minutes. But if he's having if you only get 25 minutes out of him, but he has a huge impact, I mean, he's worth having in the team, especially when you think about how little impact Kurt Capewell had in Game 2. What, you think David Fifita's not going to have as much impact as what Kurt Capewell had? I mean, seriously.
Kurt Capewell's starting now, right?
He is starting, yeah, but he didn't have. That's the thing. No,
it's weird to me. He didn't have any impact, and he's gonna start now.
Yeah,
you want to talk about a player
over his selection.
You want to talk about a player that only plays 25 minutes? Look at Spencer Leniu. Look how much impact he's having off the bench. In the first game, it was ridiculous, and then he got, hip dropped. Nothing happened. Second game, he came off and he ran for 85 minutes in 25 minutes. That's the kind of thing you could use David Fifita for. But we'll see how it goes. It could pay off, and Selwyn Cobbo was the greatest selection decision in the history of rugby league in the first game.
This is the thing. You'd have to think, we'd have to put two and two together here, you'd have to think that Billy Slater doesn't like David Fifita for whatever reason.
I think so.
But the reality is that this is not a popularity contest. You got to pick the best team you got to pick the team that's going to give you the best chance of winning a game in an Origin decider. And surely David Fifita should be a part of that team. He should be in that Queensland team. And it could come back to bite them. As I've said, I don't think you can get beaten up like that in Game 2 and then just play it safe with your selections in Game 3, even though you're going to be at home. I know it's a different game up there. But they can't play it safe, Queensland, after getting beaten up as badly as they did in Melbourne.
Well, I'm glad they didn't pick David Fifita.
I'm glad too. I am. I'll point that out. I'm glad they haven't picked him. I'll throw that out.
I'm happy to see Mitch Barnett come into the squad, and I can't wait to see him match up against Capewell.
But it's bizarre though because Buzz Rothfield was one who, from the Daily Telegraph, he was one who was quite vocal against that selection of Kurt Capewell. He said that, well, when they were down 34-0 at half-time, Kurt Capewell wasn't going to do much about it in the second half. And granted, I don't think many players would be able to do much about 34-0. But that's the point still stands, though. What was Kurt Capewell going to add off the bench? And yet now he's in the starting side.
Yeah, well, then, you go back to State of Origin 1, and New South Wales was down. They brought Spencer Leniu on, and he added a bunch of stats and a bunch of heavy runs and good runs and stuff like that. If it was 13 on 13, it would have made a bigger difference. But yeah, Kurt Capewell's not going to do that. And the closest player I can compare to David Fifita is Spencer Leniu. You know, if I'm Queensland, I want a Spencer Leniu in my side, and David Fifita is that Spencer Leniu. But madness, and happy he's not picked. Origin is next, 6 more days. Next Wednesday night, up in Queensland, 8:05 p.m, 17th of July.
Yeah, I think you mentioned Leniu only played 26 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. And he got hip dropped and nothing happened. Because Queensland. In NRL news, as you touched on, Paul Kent has been sacked. Now, when he had his crazy brawl, my belief was if he got charged, he'd get sacked. He got charged, he got sacked. It's going to take him a while to come back from that one. He's got no jobs now, right?
Yeah, well, he's been sacked by News Corp. Yeah, so, we should point out that it's come out that he was suffering from major depression disorder and alcohol use disorder at the time. But you just would have thought that, and I know he was found not guilty of those charges last year. I need to point that out and be very clear about that. He was not guilty of those charges when he was stood down last year. But you'd have to think, surely you'd think in that situation, you'd go, well, I've got my job, and he got his job back at the start of the year. You'd think, right, well, I've got to be squeaky clean now. I've just been stood down for most of the previous year. I can't afford for anything else to happen. He was given a chance. He was brought back, and then he's and then he's got himself in hot water here. And now there's no more chances for him. He's been sacked. So I just would have thought, you'd think after something like that where you stood down for much of the year from your job, that you sort of have a bit of a look at yourself in that scenario and go, right, I can't afford any slip-ups here. And unfortunately, he's slipped up and he's paid the ultimate price with his job.
Yeah, I can never really understand why these famous people continue to make these mistakes. It's a little bit weird because, I know there's, alcoholism issues and mental disorders and stuff like that, but, you go out and I'm sitting there and drinking, and if I get in trouble here, I'm going to get in a lot of trouble and I'm going to be screwed and I'm going to lose my job because I just lost my job. I should probably go home.
That would be the smart way of thinking about it. And I noticed a line here that Kent's lawyer told the court that News Corp had given his client no help as Kent battled the bottle and his mental demons, which were so bad he sought urgent counselling in the wake of the fight. Now, look, I'll point out, I need to declare I do work for News Corp. I'll put it out there as a freelancer. So I need to declare that. But I just would have thought, my attitude is, what do you expect your employer to do? Like, they're your employer. They're not... Your employer's not there to hold your hand 24/7 throughout the rest of your life. Your employer provides you with work, provides you with an income. You work a certain number of hours. You have an agreement. That's your relationship with your employer. They're not really there to hold your hand when you have issues in your personal life, such as, police matters in your personal life.
Yeah, well, if he had have approached his employer and said, look, I'm suffering from alcohol issues and I've got a mental health disorder, I'm sure his employer would have said, take all the time you need, we'll work something out. But it's not their job to, step in. There's a Mad Men scene where the girl is complaining to John Hamm's character and she says, oh, you never say thank you, you never show gratitude. And he says, you do work for me and I pay you. And she's like, yeah, but you never say thank you. And he says, that's what the money is. That's what it is. It's a transactional relationship in which Paul Kent does work for News Corp and News Corp gives him money as well. That's not counselling and, a shoulder to cry on. But so, if you had to go approach them and said, I have these issues, they would have, all right, take time off. We'll work something out. We'll find someone to cover for you. We'll use our news and media organisation to tell everyone to leave you alone. you know. But like, you can't go and have a big issue and then your employer says, look, you can't work for us anymore, and then go to the courts and say, oh, they didn't take care of us. Yeah, and but I find this.
It's amazing how these issues only seem to arise after there's a significant event.
It's our post-relationship regret disorder. But like, I just find these sports journalists seem to think that they should be taken care of like the athletes are. You know,
that's the thing. He's not a football player.
Yeah,
you know?
News Corp isn't a football club. News Corp doesn't, you know, rise and fall with the success on the field.
That's the thing. I mean, that's true. Football players do get better treatment than employees at a lot of other organisations, but that's because they're so few and far between. There's a lot of journalists out there. A lot of journalists who could do his job. He's replaceable, right? But if something happens to a star NRL player, well, they may not be replaced. There's not many star NRL players. They may not be so replaceable. And that's why footballers, athletes get that special treatment, because there's so few of them compared to people in other professions.
The thing, right? Yeah, because of that, the outcomes of jobs rise and fall with the success of the players, right? So at News Corp, News Corp isn't going to rise and fall on the success and or outcome and the health and stuff of their journalists. As you said, there's other guys who can come in and do it, right? But with the rugby league team, you know, like everybody knows, like if the team goes badly because the players aren't taken care of, everyone loses their job.
Yeah.
You know, everyone.
That's the thing. The whole coaching staff, their employment, their livelihood hinges on the players performing.
Exactly.
On the field.
If the accountants don't get the same treatment at the Bulldogs as the players, you know, because if the accountant has social and mental and alcohol issues and stuff like that, they'll they can approach their club and they can take care of them. But the club doesn't rise and fall on the back of the accountant. There's not up to 50 people who will lose their jobs. You know, you look at the Bulldogs. Bulldogs is a great example, actually. Like, they take care of their players, even though they're currently getting sued, but that's all nonsense as well. In 3 years, there's not a single person in that football department, including the players, right? That is the same.
Yeah. That just shows how cutthroat
that is.
It is.
Like 30 players, and I don't know how many people. Let's just say 20 coaching and health staff, right? So like 50 people's jobs, right, depend on the players. And these news. This isn't the first time I've seen something like this in sport from sports journalists, but they act like they should, their employer should treat them the same as the club. But as I said, massive difference. That player needs to be taken care of, because if he's not, we could all lose our jobs in the next year. Paul Kent doesn't need to be proactively taken care of, because if he's not, we just replace him with another journalist, and News Corp, the billion dollar corporation, just continues on.
Yeah. And it's not so easy for... You know, you might think, oh, if a coach gets sacked, well, there's 16 other NRL clubs. But it's not that easy to get a gig, because those clubs already have coaching staff.
Yeah.
And you know, if you've been sacked from your club, well, you're not exactly going to be at the front of the line to get another gig at another club. If you've just been sacked from your club, your stocks are going to be pretty low. So what do these coaches do? If they get sacked, well, then they've got to go find another job. They've got to do a trade. You know, there's big stakes in the performance of these players.
We went through the coaches earlier, and like half of the competition has a brand new coach in their first job. Before those guys were there were other coaches in their jobs, you know. And where are they now? Yeah. You know, and all of those coaches got sacked because the players, club didn't go well.
That's the thing. If you get sacked from your club, well, the clubs who are going well, they're not going to be making any change. Why would you change your staff if things are going well? You're not going to do that. So the window's only open at the struggling clubs, and
they don't want a coach that got sacked.
And again, even then, do they really want an assistant coach or a coach who got sacked? At least for the head coach, at least, well, if they get sacked, well, they'll probably get an assistant gig somewhere else because they've been a head coach. But if you're an assistant coach and you get sacked from a struggling club, good luck finding another gig. Yeah. I don't think any other clubs are really going to be too keen to pick you up.
No, and that's it. Like Paul Kent thought he'd get sacked, and he did. Once that charge came in, and it'll take him a few years to get back to. He'll probably write a Substack, start a website, begin a podcast, something like that. That's what these kind of guys do. There's been a lot of talk about scrapping that 6 again rule.
Yes.
Especially after Ricky Stewart's they're just guessing thingy, and Matty Johns has hit back at people who want to scrap the 6 again rule. Now, I've wanted to scrap the 6 again rule since it came in, and I haven't changed my mind.
Yeah, look, I think we might be in agreement on this one. Now, the problem I have with the 6 again rule is I think it gets used as the referees are able to use it to hedge their bets. It allows them to give a penalty without giving a penalty, and that's what I really don't like about it. Because I know 6 again counts get talked about, but it's not as glaring, is it? If a referee puts a whistle in his mouth and blows a penalty, that's a more that's more of a standout action than just waving the arm and giving a 6 again. And so that's one problem I have with it. The referee uses it. It gives the referee an out. It allows the referee if the referee doesn't have the guts to give a penalty, it gives him a plan B. And I don't really like that. The other problem I have with it is if it's given in early in the tackle count, it has no effect. Because if you give it one after one tackle in the tackle count, well, it doesn't matter. So it has zero effect on the game. And so the team defending just goes, oh, well, we'll just hold them down early in the set of 6. If we give away a 6 again, so be it. We've got them on the back foot because we've held down for so long early in the set. They'll give another 6 again. Who cares? It's just one extra tackle.
Yeah.
This is the problem. Those are two issues I have with it. I'm interested to hear if you have any.
I read a stat earlier that there's been 25% more 6 agains this year than last year. It was like earlier this year, like probably 4 weeks ago. I hate it because it's a momentum decider, and I hate it because it's inconsistent. And the main thing I really hate is inconsistency. It's inconsistent. Like Phil Gould has constantly said, and I totally agree with him, if you really wanted to follow the letter of the law, there's a 6 again in every tackle. Literally every tackle. And they don't give 6 again in every tackle. So you don't know when you're going to get 6 again. You don't know, like you said, they can hold down, right? And they're okay because, we'll only have to tackle for 7. Now, 7 tackle sets starting from the 20-metre line is different from a 7 tackle set from a team coming off the defender, their actual try line.
Right.
And so they're happy to give it away. But they don't even know if they're going to give it away, right? So they're going to push that, okay, which they all do. All of the clubs do. They push it, especially if the team is coming off their try line.
Yeah.
They'll push it, and they're happy to give away. I guarantee if you went and looked, there'd be a stack more 6 agains given in the first tackle in that 20 metres than there are at any other point in the tackle count. And then what will happen is it doesn't get given. So they think that is the standard for this set.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah.
And then third tackle, the referee will give it for the exact same thing that he didn't give it for the first tackle. And then of course the player will go, what the how do I know?
Yeah, so because if you give it away early in the set, right, it's not enough of a deterrent for the defending team. Yeah. It's supposed to be a deterrent to the defending team holding the ruck down. If it doesn't act as that deterrent, they're going to continue to slow the ruck, and the problem's still going to be there.
Exactly, and so they might have a thing where they lay on the or they put their hand in the ball and stuff like that on the first tackle, and 6 again. All right, sweet. We've got our 7 with 7 tackles now, but it's all right because we've held them down. Then it might be they had the very next set, hand in the ball, exactly the same thing. No 6 again. All right, well that's our standard now. And then on the fourth tackle, exactly the same thing happens that on the first, and it's 6 again. And then the player is like, well, I don't know what I've got to avoid here.
Yeah.
Because what am I avoiding here? What am I doing wrong here? And we used to have that issue, which everybody knows they still do, because you see Jared Rehaga gets penalised way more than any other player and stuff for things that other players do. Years and years and years ago, when Jason Riles, the new coach of Parramatta, was still playing and was playing for the Roosters, I was at a game, okay, where he tackled someone, they got up and played the ball, they dropped the ball, and it was a penalty against Riles. Down the other side of the field, Jason Riles got up, exactly the same thing happened. It was a drop ball, Jason Riles, okay? And of course, Jason Riles was very, very animated about that because it was like, up there, that was a penalty. Down here on me, it's a drop ball, okay? Very bad inconsistency in the penalties. It was like, 10 minutes apart from each other. But what we're having now, since the 6 again came in, is tackle to tackle. One tackle is 10 seconds. So tackle to tackle, you're having inconsistencies. If Jason Riles knows, right, if he's in the penalty situation, if he puts his hand on the ball, and you know what, he didn't get penalised again for putting his hand on the ball and causing a knock-on for the rest of the game, because he knows this is a penalty, I need to stop doing that and not do it, right? Then you go the opposite, and the other player knows, like, I can keep doing it to Rilesy. Right? But Jason Riles knows, I need to stop doing it. What you have now is a situation where Riles gets penalised for doing it, tackle 1, does it again, goes to 6 again, does it again on tackle 3, doesn't get the 6 again, so does it on tackle 4, gets the 6 again, doesn't do it on tackle 5. Like, it just, they don't know. The players don't know. And because the players don't know, the coaches can't coach them to know.
Yeah. And you got to ask the question, are the referees giving them early in the set so that, for them to avoid scrutiny, so that they can go, yeah, I did give 6 against, but so they don't have that much of an effect on the defensive team. There's a big difference between giving one on tackle 1 and giving it on tackle 5. So are they giving them early in the sets as a way of going, oh yeah, I policed the ruck, I gave this many 6 against, but it didn't really have that much impact on the defensive team because you did it early in the set rather than at the end of the set, and I think that's what's happening here.
Yeah, it's
an easy way for the referee to make it look like they're policing the ruck when they're not really doing anything about it, and they're not really. There's no real deterrent to the defensive team. A penalty's a much better deterrent. You get a kick for touch, go way upfield. The 6 again early in the tackle count is no great deterrent. And I don't think people who are talking about, like Matty Johns says, that they should keep the 6, keep the 6 again rule. It's been great for the game. Why aren't they talking about something far more important than that? And that's these constant stoppages, captain's challenges, bunker. That's a far bigger problem for the game. Why is there such a focus on the 6 again rule? If there weren't so many referrals for these captain's challenges, these bunker stoppages all the time, if this wasn't happening all the time, the penalties for holding down in the ruck wouldn't have been an issue. It's only an issue because we spend so much time stopping the game for this technology. They don't even get it right all the time. We hold the game up every game now. That's far more of an issue than this 6 again rule.
Yeah, the 6 again rule is meant to make the game flow, but then they keep adding all these other rules that slow the game down. If you didn't have all those other rules, you wouldn't need the 6 again rule, actually.
Exactly.
If you didn't have all the other nonsense, you wouldn't need the 6 again rule because the game would flow anyway.
Exactly. If you didn't have the captain's challenge, you didn't have the bunker, if you left it up to the referee, if you brought back in goal judges and actually made touch judges do something for once, this would never have been an issue. This rule, this 6 again rule, would never have needed to come in because the penalties would still be there, but it wouldn't be a problem because you wouldn't have all these other stoppages. Yeah,
and they give away a penalty and Jason Riles will stop touching the ball. He knows to stop touching the ball. Give away he touches the ball today in his day and age, he doesn't even know if he's going to get a 6 again or not. So, should I touch it? Should I not? No, you shouldn't touch it. But everyone else is touching it, so why aren't I allowed to touch it? Yeah, it drives me insane. Rabbitohs are on tonight against the Dolphins.
Yes, we need to point that out. So we are recording on Thursday afternoon, and the Rabbitohs are going to play the Dolphins in the Wayne Bennett Cup tonight. Yep. So we need to put that out there in case people are watching this after Thursday.
So Wayne Bennett's going to coach 2 teams against each other. Although Ben Hornby and the Rabbitohs are highly offended this, but apparently Wayne Bennett's been... So Ben Hornby said, I talk to Wayne Bennett almost every week. I have since I played for him.
Yeah, but now you're coaching an NRL. Right at the moment, you're the coach of an NRL team, Ben, and Wayne Bennett's the coach of a different NRL team. And I know he's going to that club next year, but you shouldn't be taking advice from him. Look, the Rabbitohs are getting their wins and losses closer together. They're now 6 wins and 9 losses. They're creeping up there. If they win 3 more in a row, they get back to 9 and 9. And this was the issue. The Dolphins are in 6th spot. There's a log jam of teams here. There's only 4 points between the Bulldogs in 5th spot and the Rabbitohs in 13th spot. And the Dolphins are one of those teams in between. There's this log jam for the top 8. A lot of clubs going for top 8 spots this year. And you got Wayne Bennett, who's helping the Rabbitohs on the phone. Apparently he's on the phone to Latrell Mitchell quite a lot. Apparently he's been talking to Ben Hornby about where Keon Kolomatangi needs to run in the middle.
And the Dolphins have also lost 4 in a row, 5 in a row. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in a row.
Yeah. They've lost 5 in a row. And the Rabbitohs...
Since Wayne Bennett signed for the...
So I'll tell you what, if the Rabbitohs make the 8 and the Dolphins don't, there's going to be some real issues.
If I was the Dolphins, I'd sue him. If that happens. Honestly, I'd sue him.
He's on over $1 million a year to be the Dolphins coach this year. He shouldn't be coaching
what he does.
The Rabbitohs on the side.
That's exactly what he does. And, we talked about it last week, about this is what he does. And Vic, he commented on it was two episodes ago. This is what he does. Vic commented, he's a Dragons fan, and he remembers when Wayne Bennett did it to the Dragons.
I think he can get away with players signing for another club and playing out the rest of the year. I think he can get away with that. I don't think you can with coaches, though.
No, I don't think so.
Once a coach signs with another club, if you're their existing club, you've got to cut the cord. You've got to let them go straight away, because they're just going to undermine your success. That's all they're going to do. From that point on, from the moment they sign with that other club, well, that other club is more important to them than your club now. So you've got to just let them go. And the Dolphins have held on to it. And if the Rabbitohs are creeping up there, as I said, 6 wins and 9 losses, they're in 13th spot. They are on the charge towards the top 8 the way they're going. The Dolphins, as you said, are heading the other way with 5 losses in a row. So the way this is looking, by the end of the season, this is not going to end well.
And if I was the Dolphins, I'd sue him. And the Dolphins have got Panthers next week. I mean, if they don't win tonight, they got the Panthers next week. They do have the Titans, but then they've got the Roosters. We talked about it before, their run home. They've got the Broncos, the Storm, the Bulldogs, the Roosters, the Panthers. So they could very easily miss out on the 8. Then the other teams they've got to play are like the Knights, and the Warriors, who are chasing top 8 spots.
I mean, granted, that injury to Latrell doesn't help South's cause, but that's not the point. It's the principle. Look, South. Look, if I had to put my money on it either way, I'd probably say that they're not. They're probably just going to miss out because Latrell's got injured. If Latrell hadn't have got injured, I would have been a lot more optimistic about their chances. With Latrell getting injured, sort of think if you give up the start that they've given up, and given how many other teams are in contention, you need everything to go your way to get into the top 8 from the position that they're in. So if I had to put my money on it, as I said, either way, I think they're just going to miss out here. But that's not the point. If they do happen to make it and the Dolphins don't, this is just an embarrassing situation, and it shouldn't be allowed to happen. And the NRL shouldn't be allowing this to happen either. I don't know what they're doing about it. Are they doing anything about it at NRL HQ? What do they have to say about it? They've got their heads in the sand on this one.
Wayne Bennett's allowed to do whatever he wants. I'll tell you a funny thing about the Rabbitohs. So last year, they were leading the ladder after the 11th round, and then went on to miss the finals.
So this
year,
way.
they were seriously, they were actually like last on the 11th round, and then the next week on the round 12, they beat the Eels, and that's where they started. So round 12. So if you're a betting man, next year, whatever position the Rabbitohs look like, bet on the opposite after round 11. It's a bizarre thing, man. Like they're on their way up. They've won 5 in a row. 5 in a row. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in a row. Yep. and they've beat some pretty good, average teams in there. I'm really curious. I'm really curious to see what happens tonight, because one thing that Wayne Bennett can also do is he can coach a team to the finals missing their star player.
Even when he's not really coaching, even when he's just on the phone to Ben Hornby and Latrell Mitchell every now and again.
Like, unless Ben Hornby is the new Wayne Bennett, then it's very bad. But
I'll tell you what, you made a good point last time when you said Wayne Bennett's up there for Coach of the Year this year.
Can coach two teams, man.
No one else has done that.
Coach of the century. They announced the Las Vegas for next year.
Yes.
It's a big expanded package.
Yes.
It's 4 completely new teams.
Yes, it is. So we've got the Raiders taking on the Warriors and the Panthers facing the Sharks.
Yeah, and then Gillaroos will take on whatever the Lionesses are, the British team. First time
there's
ever.
a women's international fixture. There's also going to be an English Super League fixture. The 2024 UK Challenge Cup finalists, Wigan and Warrington, are going to be playing in this. And I think Sam Burgess, who coaches Warrington, has had a fair hand in this happening. Apparently he's tight with Peter Volandis, and he's played a role in getting this to happen.
That's a long day, though. That's 4 games of football.
Yeah, it's a lot, yeah.
For a showcase. And I think it's going to go the Gillaroos, the girls, then one NRL team, then the Super League, then the other NRL team.
Can I ask you a question? Are you going to be watching all 4 games?
If I want to try and go.
Right. Right. Okay. But say.
Yes,
hopefully you get to go.
Definitely
but say that you don't get to go and you watch it from here.
Not a chance.
You wouldn't watch all 4 games. So if you wouldn't
because of the time.
If you wouldn't do it, why would an American who's not familiar with the game?
It's because of the time, right? So if I was in America,
but if you were,
if I was in America, I lived in America, and the time was good. It's like when on Grand Final day, I'll watch all the games.
Right, okay, so, but if the time zone wasn't an issue, you would watch
I'd watch all 4 of them,
Okay.
I mean, I wouldn't, watch deeply all of them.
To be honest, I don't think I could watch 4 games straight.
But I do I love the Grand Final day. I used to love it when the Grand Final day would start at, it's in the morning with a game, and then the footy show would be on at 11 or something. And then there'd be the footy show and the Sunday roast, and then Wide World of Sports, and then another game would be on, and then another game would be on, and then it'd finish with the grand final. So I'd get 4 games and all that footy. That was and I'd have breakfast, lunch, and dinner on the barbecue.
Yeah.
But this one, the time zone, no, I wouldn't. If I lived in America, I would like it. But it's the same thing. When there's 4 games and it's the Jersey Flag, the Premier League, and the whatever the Premier was it called Premier League?
It was back in the day. It was called Premier League for a while. It was called First Division for a while.
And then the
reserve grade.
The other whatever other game there was or whatever under 20s, blah blah blah.
Jersey Flag.
I'd be off barbecuing
Cup.
during the game and stuff like that. So I'd have it on, but
I think you have it on in the background as background noise.
But if I went there, it'd be a mad awesome thing. But anyway, and I can't imagine a bunch of Americans going and watching 4 games of anything. That's a mad television event for Americans, because Americans do those things where they have Thanksgiving Day has a big football game on it. And, they'll sit around and they'll have their dinner, and then all the men will watch the football and stuff.
Look, I'll be honest with you. That's why I'm here, to be honest. Given those 4 games, I'd watch the 2 NRL games. I wouldn't watch.
But now you're going to have to watch, I'm pretty sure you have to watch an NRL game, and then there's going to be a 2-hour break because of the Warrington one.
Okay, well, and again, it's not, I've got nothing against the women's international fixture, of course. I just wouldn't happen to watch that game. I've got nothing against it. And it's not a sexist thing, because I'm not interested in the Super League game either.
That's why I don't like that.
I wouldn't watch Wigan and Warrington. If there's 2 NRL games on, plus Wigan and Warrington, plus another women's international fixture, well, I'm more interested in the 2 NRL games than the 2 other games, so I'm going to watch those.
I'm sure most people, even in Australia, and the time is going to be a bit more screwy this time, because if you want to watch both NRL games, you've got to sit for 6 hours, right? So most people are going to watch the first one, bar the second one, watch the third one. And that's a bad... There's actually no reason to have it scheduled like that for an American audience. They should do the lead up where it's because for the Australian audience, they should have the 2 NRL games next to each other. It should go doesn't matter. Like the Gillaroos, then the Super League, then the 2 NRL games.
That's the thing.
For the Australian audience.
That's the thing. If you had the women's international fixture before, say, a State of Origin game, you would watch it.
Yeah.
But it's just because there's 4 games on. A lot of people, I don't have the attention span to watch 4 games, so I'm going to pick the 2 best, or the 2 that I'm most interested in, which are the 2 NRL games, and I'm going to not watch the other 2.
And what are you going to do in that 2-hour period when Wigan and Warrington are on?
Oh, I'll just...
What most Aussies are going to do, they're going to be annoyed that it's on because they just wanted to watch 2 games of football next to each other.
Yeah.
I think that's
I'll tell you what, I am looking forward to Americans getting to watch the NRL's Tom Brady in Nathan Cleary play with the Panthers. I'm looking forward to that.
How's it going to work if they win again?
The Panthers?
If they were to win again, and that's the risk of announcing the teams this early. Well, they have to go do England World Club Challenge thing as well.
Yeah, well, I guess that's another.
Out of those 4 teams, Panthers are the only ones that could possibly win.
I guess that will be a logistical issue if the Panthers do win the premiership again.
Who were the other?
They'll have to work out. Well, where do we slot the World Cup?
Who were the other
Challenge?
3 teams? It was like the Raiders and
so it's the Raiders play the Warriors, the Panthers play the Sharks.
Yeah, I don't see the Sharks, Warriors, or Raiders winning. So
no, but you're right. That could be an issue if the Panthers win it. What are they going to do about the World Club Challenge? I'm sure they'll come up with a solution.
For that. Maybe that's what they're doing. Like that's the savior. Like they're hoping that if they do win, then they'll have to go on this massive trip and they won't be able to win the following year. We don't want 5 in a row.
Yeah, and I guess the Panthers have signed themselves up for that, haven't they? So
yeah.
I think they're putting.
Apparently, there's a lot of money in it. There's a lot of money in it. Like they make a lot of money. They get paid a lot of money for it and stuff. So yeah,
they'll work out a plan for it.
And then the 18th franchise new news. What happened to the PNG blah blah blah? But now it's the Perth Bears. Bears are willing to relocate over to Perth to make a team there. Yeah,
according to reports, the Bears are edging closer to an NRL return with North Sydney and the Western Australian Rugby League power brokers set to agree to a franchise partnership. That's according to a report in the Daily Telegraph. Apparently, they've held positive talks in Sydney. And North Sydney officials soften on their list of prerequisites. So this is a moving beast. This is moving very quickly. So apparently it's been revealed how much the franchise will need to get off the ground. Apparently the figure that needs to be raised is reportedly about $30 million for this to get off the ground. So I think from memory they were going to come in the plan is for this 18th team to come in about 2027, I believe.
Yeah. And then Brad Arthur was offered... Well, he's been signed with the Leeds Rhinos, and they had offered him a long-term deal. And he asked for it to be shorter because he wants to be the first Perth Bears coach.
Yeah, that's very interesting as well. What do we think here about them? It looks likely that they're going to be going back to Perth. I mean, it didn't work last time. It didn't work. So I don't know. Look, is it more about 2 things? Is it about 2 things? The first thing is getting an 18th team so you get an extra game for the TV to make the TV rights deal worth more money. That's the first thing. The second thing I think it's about is the time difference, the time zone, because they're
2 hours?
Well, for some of the year it's 2 hours. When it's daylight saving, it's 3 hours. Is it that time difference? You could have, if it's a 2 hour time difference, you could have an extra game on Super Saturday. You could play it at 7:30 in Perth. It's a 9:30 game Sydney time. So you'd have an extra, you'd be going through to 11:30 on a Super Saturday. It gives them a lot more, it gives them more scope for that sort of thing, having a Perth team. But that having been said, it didn't work in Perth last time. So I wonder why they think it might work.
I think the not working thing is like a bit of a... like it's not a thing because, the Gold Coast didn't work 2 times. But I think now they're at the point where they're all immune from closing down, really, because of the TV deals and the grants and stuff, because they're all... Basically, the NRL funds them all enough so that they can all survive now. which is what the NRL is meant to do.
So there's a good chance the clubs that are there now are still going to be there in 30 or 40 years.
Yeah, I think so. I really think so. Because one of the things about the, because there was the team in Perth and all that kind of stuff, and there was 20 teams after the Super League war, and then News Corp owned half of the NRL and wanted it to be a for-profit company. Well, it was a for-profit company. And now it's basically a not-for-profit. Mm-hmm. And so the NRL funds... I think, the NRL and AFL are the two sporting codes in Australia that are immune. Rugby union was, you would have thought that 20 years ago, but there's nothing coming out that's going to, overtake them. They're going to always can maintain the same deal. So the only danger is if they overexpand to the point where they don't have enough players and then they can't do it anymore. Because if they don't have enough players and the quality of the game drops and they start getting less TV ratings and their TV deals will go down. Mm-hmm. So... That's
why they never... And this is probably a mistake they made during that Super League era where it was just madness, the number of clubs they were bringing in and kicking out of the game. The problem with bringing so many clubs in so quickly is you run that risk of not having enough players and the overall quality dropping. But if you just bring in one every so often, every 5 or 10 years or whatever, 15 years, well, it's a lot less risky that way.
Yeah, because you think about it, the TV will pay $2 billion or whatever, and just say they over the course of a weekend, I'm just making up numbers, they average 1 million viewers in the 8 games, right? And then if they were to add in 5 more games, so now we've got 13 games, and they're averaging 1 million viewers over 13 games, the TV deals is not going to get bigger, so they can't afford those players and teams, right? But if they add an extra club and that 1 million views, now they have an next game goes to 1.1 million, then the TV deal becomes more valuable to the TV people. Yeah. So that's how they have to manage it. And I think they've learned that. And so wherever it is, it doesn't matter, to my mind, actually. Because the Gold Coast has terrible crowd, I don't know about now, but they had for a while, they've been in since 2007.
Yes.
Yes.
The Titans have,
yeah. So they failed twice. They've had terrible crowd numbers for a while. They suck as a team. They don't... but they just get funded by the NRL. Mm. That's it. They take their grant, they take whatever memberships they have and everything. I think
the NRL are willing to take that hit.
Yeah, I think now all of the clubs are profitable as well. I think that's the thing, all of them, because of that. Because I think the NRL, so the salary cap's, I might pull a number out of my ass here. I think it's about $11 million.
Yeah, 11 or 12 million, something.
And I think the NRL funds them $17 million a year. So now they're getting more than the salary cap or something like that. And so then they get their memberships and stuff all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I just think they'll be fine. I'll give them extra money in the TV deal as long as the average round ratings go up, then the TV deal will be fine and continue. The only danger to all of this, AFL, NRL and stuff like that, is actually if free-to-air TV dies. Then you're going to rely on streaming services to buy it.
And then it's going to be harder to get the eyeballs on
it. Yeah. And they pay less, actually. Streaming services pay less because they get less ratings. In Australia, this is in Australia, people. Less ratings than free-to-air television for sport. So, cricket or whatever is on Paramount Plus. But there's Paramount Plus, Netflix, Foxtel, KO, Hubble.
Isn't it only 1 in 5 households have paid TV or something like that?
There's paid TV though, but then there's the streaming services, right? So it's something like... oh, God, I actually did this.
I'm just sort of saying that's... If you just look at it like that, if 1 in 5 households have pay TV, that's not many.
Yeah, exactly.
It's only 20% of households.
I think it's 60% of households have a streaming service, right? But it's a streaming service. I did a research for it a month ago for something, and I only vaguely remember. Maybe it was 3 out of 5 houses in Australia have a streaming service or something, right? But that's a streaming service. Right? So that's Netflix, Paramount Plus, KO, Disney Plus, HBO, if that exists in Australia. I don't know. There's so many of them. Amazon Prime. So if free-to-air dies, right, and sports have to move on to streaming services, then 60% of people have a streaming service. And they're highly unlikely to change. If they only have one, they're highly unlikely to change that. People like their TV shows more than they like their sport. They're more loyal to their streaming services over their sport. It's like, I can't imagine that 1 million people signed up for Paramount Plus for the cricket or whatever the crap. It's on Paramount Plus. See, I don't even know. Like, you know.
Oh, the 2020 World Cup, I think that was on Amazon Prime.
Yeah, like 1 million people didn't sign up for Amazon in Australia.
That's the thing, but would they... Right, they didn't sign up to watch the 2020 World Cup, but would they to watch their football team?
No. That's what I was going to get to next. Because not everyone who watches NRL has KO and Foxtel. They live without those games. Or they go out to their friends.
They go to the pub.
Or they go to the
pub.
And
then the viewers don't count because it's one TV at the pub.
Okay, so that's the thing, right? They have a streaming service. If you have Netflix, right, and you love rugby league... and you've been watching your 3 games a week, or what's on free to air now? I don't know. 3 games.
I'm pretty sure they do Thursday night, Friday night, Sunday over. I think it's 3 a week.
Friday has 2.
Sorry?
Friday has 2.
Oh, no, but one of them's not on free to air.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that sucks.
So I think it's Thursday night, one Thursday night, one Friday night, and one Sunday night. Sometimes you get a 4th on a Saturday night. I think sometimes they do that towards the end of the season. But generally speaking, it's only those.
Yeah. So you don't have Foxtel now. You've got your Netflix. People don't change from Netflix to no one changed from Netflix to KO, right? For the NRL. So if NRL is to disappear off TV, people aren't going to change from Netflix to whatever paid streaming service it's on. Instead, they're just going to go to the pub more to watch it. So. Because they like fans, sports, like rugby league fans, right? If I didn't have the KO, Dragons playing on Friday, I'd watch it. If it was playing on Saturday, I'd go somewhere else to watch it, right? Rugby league isn't on free to air at all anymore. I'm not going to buy KO if I don't already have it. I didn't have it for the past 10 years. Instead, it just means I'm going to go to the pub to watch the Dragons.
Yeah.
You know, it's every week instead of every couple of well, Dragons never get free to air TV. Come on, Raiders fans. So
just on that, you're right. That base salary cap for 2024 for the NRL clubs is 11.25 million. Yeah,
something like that. So yeah, that's why I don't think it being in Perth is that bad of a thing anymore. But I'm just surprised that the Pacific Island ones didn't go ahead because the government was going to pay.
It's just the logistics of that, isn't it? Like basing a team in, PNG or
how far long is the flight to PNG?
Would players have to? I'm guessing the players would have to live in North Queensland, maybe.
Oh no, that's right. I remember there was a thing they surveyed or asked some players on the sly, like on the condition of anonymity. Because they would have to live in a compound.
Yeah. I think it's just the logistics there. Look, I suspect the main thing is it's about the TV deal. It's about getting the 9 games each weekend on TV and increasing the value of the TV deal.
Average length of the flight is 13 hours as well.
From
Australia to PNG. 13 hours. Average direct flight from Australia to Papua New Guinea takes 13 hours.
It depends what part of Australia you're coming from, doesn't it? Yeah.
Or 3 hours and 56 minutes. What the hell is this?
Well, from North Queensland, it wouldn't be as long as from, Melbourne or
That's
Perth
nonsense. No, it's 3 hours, 56 minutes. That first thing is wrong. It's around 4 hours. So it's, 4 hours, 53 from Melbourne to PNG. 7 hours sometimes if you go from the crappy ones. But yeah.
What would Townsville to PNG be?
You'd have to probably do a connecting flight, yeah?
Yeah, probably.
And so that probably is it. The logistics and the fact that you have to, you have to do a connecting flight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just too hard, I think, from that point of view.
And then, so we'll see what happens with the Perth Bears. It'll be any time now. They have to announce any time now. So they said, like when it was all that PNG thing was on, they said they would announce after Origin who the next team is. So it's either going to be Perth or PNG.
Yeah, so the Bears will be back, not as North Sydney, but their exile from the competition is about to come to an end.
And Ricky's Raiders, Ricky walked off the field the other day, or out of the coach's box or whatever, because the Raiders suck.
Yeah. Yeah, it's unbelievable, isn't it? This slide just continues. Lost 16-12 to the Knights at GIO Stadium. I know we're getting close to the next round, but they have the bye this round, so I think we can still talk about it. That's 4 straight losses they've had. Now 4 losses in a row at GIO Stadium. So not winning at home when they should be winning at home, as we've said quite a few times. It's the winter months. You get the -5 degree nights. This is when they're supposed to be at their best at home. Again, no mention of the Raiders on NRL 360 on Monday night. So again, just conveniently letting Ricky off. Ricky continues to get a free pass here and never held accountable by his mates in the media.
I wouldn't want to be the Raiders when the Rabbitohs jump over them if they jump over them this week.
Oh, wow. Well, that just shows you. Who would have thought, eh? The Rabbitohs, yeah, the same competition points. I don't know. I'm guessing the Raiders' bye points haven't been added yet, but they're only 3 points off on differential.
And that's going to be it. If the Rabbitohs win...
So if they win by... They only need to win by 4 points or more to go in front of them.
I wouldn't want to be the Raiders.
No.
And yeah, like they're just... It's such a weird occurrence, and... our fans have talked about it on our thing, and they completely agree. It's unbelievable that nobody talks about the Raiders and Ricky Stewart going so terribly. Got himself a 5-year extension while Brad Arthur gets sacked.
It's unbelievable. It continues on. He continues to be untouched by his mates in the media. Never held to account. Extraordinary, only won 1 premiership, and that was way back in 2002, and that wasn't with his current club. So that premiership that he won shouldn't mean anything to his current club. At his current club, he's now been there for nearly 11 years and never won a premiership.
Yeah, and nothing happens to him.
No, never held accountable. He'll probably make it to the end of that contract in 2029. And by then it'll be 27 years since his premiership win.
And I chucked this on just today because I was actually having a laugh about it. Our expert tips.
I have a feeling I may not be travelling.
Now I just want to caveat this with I am winning the global tipping right now.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm guessing that doesn't bode well for me.
But at the beginning of the year, we were doing tips during the Thursday podcast. And I don't do research till Thursday afternoon. I'm fully late. And then so I would tip during the podcast, and then some of my tips would change afterwards. Yeah. But I would stick to them on our expert tips.
Yeah.
So Craig Gower is actually winning at the moment on 80.
Right.
Which is pretty damn good.
Yeah.
Followed by Mitchell Pearce. So the rugby league players obviously better than the rest of us at 79. Now me and you are equal at 77.
Okay, so we're 3 behind the leader, are we?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm happy with that. So, and we're 3 behind Craig Gower and 1 behind Mitchell Pearce?
2 behind Mitchell Pearce.
Oh, okay, 2 behind Mitchell Pearce. Okay.
Julie Snook is at the bottom of the ladder on 76, only 1 behind us.
Okay, so it's a very close ladder.
Yeah, it's pretty good. And then this round is really funny because so last round was quite a funny round because what happened was, It's really hard now because end of the year and everyone is tipping the same, basically, right? Was it last round? No, it was the round before. Round 17.
I guess you and I are going to get to a point soon where we're going to have to tip some outliers to make up some ground on.
And so that's what happened. In round 17, all of us tipped the Sharks except for Piercy. And then the Bulldogs won. All of us tipped the Broncos except for Gowie. The Warriors won. All of us tipped the Eels except for Daniel for Ramo, and the Knights won. All of us tipped the Dolphins except for John, and the Dragons won. So the outliers won every single game that round.
It's just about knowing which game is going to be the outlier.
Exactly.
That's the issue.
You got to win on the outlier. And this round, which we can see a changing thing is, Piercy is the outlier tonight. He's weirdly tipped the Rabbitohs. But Gowie has tipped the Dragons and the Knights, and no one else has. We all think the Broncos and the Sea Eagles are going to win those 2 games. Now, I'll just give an honourable mention to Julie. Hi, Julie. She did tip the Tigers. I guess she's a Tigers fan because she seems to tip them every round. But it's an interesting time. There can be some catch-up here.
Can I ask you a question about this? Are we going to be tipping the finals or not?
Yeah.
We are, okay.
Yeah.
All right. All right, so there's still plenty of time to catch.
It's very
I think
close.
Maybe I shouldn't tell you my strategy, but I suspect the best way would be to just slowly make up the ground rather than make rash decisions and fall further behind.
Definitely. No, it definitely is. But it's pretty close. So because we're all so close, by the end of the year in the next 7 weeks, we don't know who's going to come out on top. But right now, it's suggested you follow Craig Gower's tips because he's winning. So yeah, thought I'd give that
up.
If
you follow his tips, we won't lose ground, but we won't make up ground.
Exactly.
Either. So at some stage, we're going to have to
got to do the outliers.
Go out on a limb. Yeah.
Got to do the outliers. Me and you aren't outliers this week.
No. I think in all honesty, is now I don't know whether now with the origin period still going on, is this?
I don't know.
Do you sort of just play it safe until the end of the origin period, get through that, and then as we go through this final stretch of the season where everyone's back, is that your time?
That's when it all comes together.
Yeah.
I can't believe Craig Gower has tipped the Dragons because they're missing Ben Hunt and Zach Lomax.
He's been pretty good with the outlines, so I'm not going to question him.
On to AFL. Now, Adam Simpson was sacked by the West Coast Eagles the other day.
Yes.
After 11 years in the job.
Won a premiership in 2018.
Yep, and has had not a good run the last few years. Now, everything about this was weird. I actually wrote a column about it with an included mention of it Wednesday.
Yes, you did.
Wednesday?
Was it yesterday? I think you wrote that column.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because what the news would have you believe is there was some kind of war between Adam Simpson and the News. But it was the weirdest set of circumstances ever. Everyone on the internet has hammered basically journalists for their coverage of it. That's sad. And it's just been a beyond ridiculous kind of situation. Yeah,
now, there was particular attention given to this controversial front page in the West Australian newspaper. Again, we don't normally talk about Aussie rules just because John and I are a lot more interested in rugby league, so we normally don't worry about it. But when you get big stories like this, it is hard to ignore. And you had it in your column yesterday, so I thought I would chuck it on the rundown today. And this front page in the West Australian. Now, what it had was, I don't know if you saw the front page. You did, yes. So for anyone who didn't see it, it had his W's and L's over his last 65 games. So it had a lot of L's on it. Unfortunately for Adam Simpson, 57 L's and only 8 W's in his last 65 games. I think that equates to his last 3 seasons, something like that. Just about that.
It's around 60.
In the job. I think it's his last 3 seasons in the job.
Yeah.
And so it also said on it, I think it also said, "See you, Simo." It said that. It had that on it. So, and there's been a lot of talk about people saying, look, this is a disgraceful front page. This is no way to treat someone who's just been sacked from their job. Look, very interesting. A lot of an uproar about it. But what we've got to point out is, as well, is he's struggled for a long time. He did win that premiership in 2018, but this is a club that finished second last in 2022, last in 2023, and is 16th this year. And that's led them to pull the trigger and decide to sack him. Now, look, I think, given that he's been sacked, I think it's pretty harsh to go with that front page. I think if they had to run that front page, if they were lobbying him for him to be sacked, and they were sick of the fact that he hadn't been sacked because of this really poor record he's had over the last 3 years, the last 65 games, and their goal was to have him removed, I wouldn't have so much of an issue with that because all they're doing is stating the facts. Those are the facts. That's his win-loss record over that amount of time. But that having been said, do you really need to sink the boot in after the guy's lost his job? He's lost his job. I don't know. Again, we're not that into the AFL. I don't know Adam Simpson's personal situation. I'm guessing he's got a wife. I'm guessing he's got kids. So to sink the boot in and go see your Simo and put his win-loss record after he's been sacked, I think that's in poor taste. if it had been done before he'd been sacked, I wouldn't have felt so bad about it because all they were doing is stating the facts. But given the timing, I think it is in poor taste from West
everything
Australia.
about it was just bizarre. Like, and I think it speaks volumes to the West Coast and the treatment of the West Coast Eagles. Actually, like they're a club in crisis. They won like only 3 games last year or whatever, and got the wooden spoon. And they're not going very well this year. I think they're third last.
Well, they're 16th out of 18 teams, so third last. Yep.
He was always going to get the sack. You know, that's the way sports works.
Yeah, you're not, even with that premiership in 2018, I mean, for a team that's had this run of 3 straight years of terrible results, 2018 seems like a long time ago.
Any person other than Ricky Stewart's going to get sacked.
Right? It's quite appropriate that we've come on to Adam Simpson after we talked about Ricky Stewart because the only coach who could survive this run of L's, as we should put it, is Ricky Stewart.
Yeah, exactly.
No other coach could survive.
And then, you watch the press conference. I think that was the weirdest thing about it. Like, because the news was terrible, and then during the press conference, the CEO mentioned that they were going to invite him back to coach one more game. And, like, you've been sacked, come and coach. And
that was the other point to make about it was, and I don't think he even knew about it.
No, he fully didn't know.
They said in the press conference, whoever it was, the CEO, whoever that other official was in the press conference, said, we'd love you to come back and coach one more game, Adam. And he didn't even know about it. And he actually said that. How awkward's that? In the press conference, he actually said, I didn't know that I had to do that. I had to come back and coach one more game.
Yeah,
and fair enough, he declined. You can't have it both ways. If you're sacking the guy, you can't expect him to come back and coach one more game.
No, it was so bizarre.
That is bizarre. Who does that? You're sacking the coach, and yet you can have one more farewell game. It's not like it's if it was the last game of the season, you could go, well, all right, it's only one more game to go. Just coach that last game, and then you're done. There's more games to go this season, so. That really makes
why would anyone do it?
You need to install an interim coach anyway. Yeah. Why would you make him coach one more game?
It made no sense. And
it was West Coast CEO Don Pike.
Yeah, that's his name. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So everything about that was terrible, like just weird and bizarre. It was like we're living in bizarro world. And I feel for Adam Simpson. He does have 3 kids, just so you know. Yeah.
Well, I mean, they have feelings too. They have to. I'm guessing they're at school age. These kids, they have to go to school. They've got other kids who'll have something to say to them. That they've got to deal with that, and we need to be mindful of that as well. To have that front page, the W's and the L's after he's been sacked, and say, "See you, Simo." Like, talk about dancing on the poor bloke's grave. I mean, that's extremely out of order from the West Australian, and what a trash news. Yeah. What a trash news item from them. Definitely. to have that on their front page.
So that's AFL. AFL has... But, of course, we won't see anything negative about AFL in the news because they're not allowed to do anything negative.
No, it's a rarity, isn't it?
Wimbledon continues. Novak Djokovic looks like he's going to win.
Yeah, so I did that preview article of that Djokovic v Demonar match on our website, and the match didn't end up going ahead because Demonar pulled out.
Producer John kept spelling his name wrong. But
it's all right. We got there in the end.
So apparently in the game before, in Demonar's match before, and went on the winning
Arthur
streak.
Fils. Yes, I think it might have been on the last point, he suffered this injury.
Yeah, he heard a snap while taking a step, which is terrible.
Yeah, suffered a hip injury in his 4th round victory over Arthur Fils, the Frenchman, and wasn't able to take the court against Djokovic. Yeah, he heard, as you said, he heard a crack while lunging for a volley on match point in that match. So how unlucky is that? He gets injured on match point. How unlucky.
And then
if he'd finished at a point before, he never suffers that injury.
There's a big outcry. I don't know if you can call it an outcry, but Novak Djokovic has actually had a massively easy run this Wimbledon because everyone's pulling out injured.
Yeah, so let's just have a look at his run here. So, he beat Capriva in very easy straight sets in round 1. Fernley in round 2 won in 4 sets. I'm surprised he lost a set to Fernley. Beat Australia's own Alexei Popyrin in the 3rd round in 4 sets. Popyrin won a set against him. That's a good result for him. And then he destroyed Holger Rune in the round of 16, straight sets. The crowd weren't nice to him, though, those chants of Rune, and he didn't like that. He interpreted that as the crowd using that as an excuse to boo him. And then he goes through, gets a free pass through against de Minaur pulling out a walkover over de Minaur. And now he's going to play against Lorenzo Musetti, the 25th seed. He gets to play a 25th seed in a semi-final. This is a dream run for Novak Djokovic. Yeah. It really is firming as a... And I mean, in the other semi, we're going to have Carlos Alcaraz against Daniil Medvedev. So you really have to think it's a two-horse race.
It's a hardcore one side and a Novak Djokovic easy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I suspect... You'd have to think it's going to be a rematch of last year's final, and it'll be Carlos Alcaraz and Djokovic in the final, which Alcaraz won in 5 sets last year. So I think that if that were to be the final, that's a real toss of the coin for me. And I think at 37 years of age, Djokovic will welcome the easy run into the final too.
Yeah.
Assuming he makes the final, I think we can be fairly confident that he's going to beat Musetti in the semis.
Yeah, I'd say so.
And in the women's, Donna Vekic is going to play against Paolini in the semis, and Elena Rybakina is going to play against Krejci Sekova in the other.
Which one's the billionaire?
I think it was Navarro. I'm pretty sure her name was Navarro. If you want to look that up.
Yeah, she beat Coco Gauff. That was one of the stories of the thing. Emma Navarro, yeah. She's an American billionaire heiress, plays tennis for fun.
Yeah, she was the one who lost to Paolini. Paolini won that match very easily, 6-2, 6-1 in the quarterfinal. You don't like seeing these 6-2, 6-1 results in the quarterfinals. You want to see closer matches than that at the business end of the tournament.
So Coco Gauff was knocked out by the billionaire.
Yes.
Yeah, super weird. And then
real pity for Alex de Minaur.
It is. It sucks.
And I think he's in doubt for the Olympics now too.
Yeah, he is actually. But he'll probably end the tournament at 6th. I think 6th was the...
Right, okay. Well, that's a big jump in ranking points because I think he made the second round last year, so it's a huge increase.
Yeah.
Are only defending points until the second round. So that means now that he's made the quarterfinals, that means he gets those points.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
The last year's result has a huge bearing on ranking points. If he only made the second round last year and the quarters this year, he's going to get a huge increase in points.
Yeah, so I think it's 6th.
That sounds about right to me. That he'd have that sort of a jump.
That's awesome. Aussie in the top 10 and soon to be in the top 5. And that's it for Wimbledon. We'll see what happens when Novak Djokovic wins.
Although Alcaraz... you got to remember, Alcaraz beat him in 5 sets in the final last year.
If Djokovic can finally be happy.
Look, even if he wins this one and goes to 25 majors, I still don't think he'll be happy.
Yeah, that's true. He'll have to win another Wimbledon to beat Federer's record.
Yeah. Well, if he wins this one, he only goes equal with Federer on Wimbledon wins. 8 Wimbledon titles if Djokovic wins this one.
And we always love a English cricket story.
Especially these sorts of English cricket stories.
So Ben Stokes, champion Englishman and all-round great player, has given a speech in the dressing room. Yeah,
so these were some quotes. This was the quote, the bizarre declaration that Ben Stokes made. He made this claim during a post-match dressing room speech, which was shown by the ECB during a documentary about the 2023 Ashes series. The all-rounder Ben Stokes, his remarks came after the 4th test in last year's Ashes series was washed out due to rain in Manchester. That washout allowed Australia to retain the Ashes urn, leaving the England players devastated. So these comments were made knowing that Australia had retained the urn. That series ended as a 2-2 draw, and Australia, obviously being the holders of the Ashes, retained the urn as a result of that series being 2-2. So this is what Ben Stokes said. He said, and I quote, his side will, I quote, will live forever in the memory of people who were lucky enough to witness us play cricket. So everything we've done up until now isn't going to stop because we haven't managed to win the urn back. The reward for our work isn't what we get, but what we become. And what we have managed to do is we've managed to become a sports team that will live forever in the memory of people who were lucky enough to witness us play cricket. This is Ben Stokes' level of delusion after England essentially, I know it was a draw, but they didn't have the earn. Essentially, they lost the Ashes.
Did you see his social media response to all of the people making fun of him?
Yes, he said that apparently that he's living rent-free in their head. And yet he said Australians are obsessed with England, and yet he's the one who's quoted here. So he says Australia is obsessed with England, but yet these quotes come from him.
Oh,
they don't come from Australians.
England is nothing more than a bunch of Queenslanders. Or Queensland English people. I don't know, but yeah, mate, just...
Yeah, he needs to realise the idea is to win the Ashes.
Win anything.
If you don't win the Ashes, nobody's going to remember anything.
If you don't
Nobody
win...
cares about your Bazball... Nobody cares about your Bazball style of cricket if you lose the Ashes series or draw it when you needed to win it to get the Ashes.
You know
back.
what England needs to do? Win anything.
Yeah, that'd be a start, wouldn't it? I think people would remember them winning a lot more than they'd remember them losing.
Anything. So you can see what he has won. Let's see. 2017 Champions Trophy, Team of the Tournament.
We've got to remember England haven't won an Ashes series since 2015. That's 9 years ago now. Their last Ashes series win on Australian soil came way back in 2010 and 11. And before that, it was a long time before they'd won one in Australia. That 2010-11 series victory is the only one in a very long time in Australia for England.
I think we're living rent-free in Ben Stokes' head. But it all comes down to the Johnny Bairstow stomping. Just remember that. That's been the downfall of English
cricket. Yeah, look, I'm surprised he wasn't talking more about that. I'm surprised he wasn't... I'm surprised that wasn't... that
should have been the correct... And remember, guys, even though we didn't get the Ashes, they stumped Bairstow.
I'd be interested in knowing how many books will be written about the Johnny Bairstow stumping.
Every single... Well, there was 11 players on the team, so there's 10 more books to go. Plus the coach. So on you, Ben Stokes, living rent-free in our head.
Yeah, keep living in delusion. Keep deluding yourself into thinking that anyone cares about a team that couldn't win the Ashes. No one cares about your playing style if you don't win.
Yeah,
sorry.
Exactly. And you also didn't win the T20 and almost got knocked out. So
yes.
Australia didn't win the T20 World Cup either. India did. And oh my God, we talked about a few podcasts a while ago where no one went and greeted the Australian cricket team when they returned from India after winning the World Cup. Did you see the images of the Indian people coming out for the Indian cricket team?
Half of India were there.
It looks like it. Yeah. Like there's 500 million people in the streets, cheering the parade. It's crazy. Like just nothing.
That's passion. I love it. That's passion. There's not enough. That's genuine sporting passion that was shown by those Indian fans, and there's not enough of that in this country anymore.
They crowded the streets. They surrounded the stadium.
I'd love it if that's what happened to Pat Cummins and the Australian team when they got back from the World Cup last year. But unfortunately, there's no national pride in this country anymore, and you're not even allowed to celebrate Australia Day anymore in this country. So, unfortunately, that won't happen here, but good to see that it happened in India.
Yeah, see, Indians know how to do it. That's it for sports news, guys. Thanks for listening. We're onto some social media blower-uppers. So, Fubar Guy... we did a conversation about concussions in the NFL. I thought this comment was funny. He said, you step onto that field willingly, you make millions. Instead of buying 30 bedroom houses and 17 cars, invest in your future. Ramps, chair that takes you upstairs, handicap-friendly bathrooms, nurses, and maid staff. Because it was a conversation about how the league should do more. A little bit unfair. These guys get paid to do exactly this. But I'm not going to lie, he had me in the first half. Invest in your future.
Yeah. How many of these NFL players you reckon would bomb all their cash?
All of them.
You reckon?
Yeah, so...
Not that many.
No, it's a lot. Obviously Tom Brady is a billionaire and stuff like that, but he's going to lose a lot, or he did lose a lot of money in his divorce, but...
He'd still be all right, though.
Yeah. It's like when Jeff Bezos lost half his money in his divorce and was still the richest man in the world. And his wife was then the richest woman.
You got to be the Bill Gates or Jeff Bezos to not get hit too much if you have a divorce, I think.
So the big issue with them is the NRL and AFL do a lot of player welfare for the young guys, and you know, provide them with financial advice and stuff like that. And in the NFL, though, it's a lot of like poverty in America. If anyone's been to America, is really weird. Like, you know, we have places like Alice Springs, which are terrible, and regional Northern Territory, which are terrible and stuff. Like, you know, they say they're like third world countries, but in some American cities, you literally cross the road and go from like business to you're about to get stabbed. Like, it's crazy. I got asked when I was going to get a tattoo in America if I wanted to buy crack. It was super scary.
This is the thing. What we need to remember is a lot of these NFL players, they come from, you know, low socioeconomic backgrounds.
And that's the thing.
And so they're not well educated, and a lot of them just don't know how to handle this amount of money. And
what they'll do is they'll bring their family up with them, you know, so they'll try and take care of their family. Because a lot of the time, especially in the US, and especially with African American players and stuff, it'll be like the guy will be young in high school, very like good at basketball, NFL, whatever, and so the family will like make a lot of sacrifices to make sure they get the thing. So the person will reciprocate if they do make it to the NFL, and you know the smallest bloody contract is like $2 million a year or something like that for punters, some crap like that, you know. But then they get a lot of hangers on as well, you know, like sycophants and stuff that when they were like high school friends and stuff like that have this expectation that they'll also be given money, and the players will just do silly things like buy flash cars and stuff and then burn all their money. And there are like a lot of ex-NFL players I know that like open up finance management firms and things to help the young guys, but yeah, they do need to invest in their future. So the other comment is from the General. Hi, the General. He said, John, did you not play in the dirt? As a kid, you seem to be sick a lot. Bro, I have kids. They bring sickness home all the time, and I train a lot. So when you train a lot, your immune system will be down unless you take a lot of supplements. So I do get like croaky voice and stuff often. I wish I didn't because it takes me away from training. And also my kids, but you know, who cares about the kids?
Thanks for that comment, General. Thank you.
I have been sick quite a lot this year, though. On to housekeeping. There was no Smart B Sports Racing Update podcast last week because Lewis was unavailable. Hopefully they get back to it this week. Don't forget to follow at SmartB app on all of the social medias, and make sure you check our trivia questions on the social medias. Comment, answer the question, and you can win 2 tickets to any general admission game in any regular season sport in Australia. They contact you and they say, what do you want? Somebody went to the Panthers or is going to the Panthers versus Titans. I think someone's got some AFL tickets. Someone asked for some basketball tickets. Whatever you want, just answer the trivia question. Bro, there's Google, ChatGPT. You can answer the question so easy. Just tag your friends. Every person you tag is an extra entry. Cool. And awesome. See you next week, Dan.
Sounds good. I'll see you next week, John.
Have a good weekend.
You too.